Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Param Ishvaro Guratmiti Murti Veda Vibhagine Pyomabda Vyakta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste, welcome everyone. We are back with our Drsya, verse 13. And the verse itself says that indeed Maya has two powers of the nature of projecting and veiling. The projecting power creates the world, beginning from the subtle body, which is the experiencer being created. The project power creates the world, and the world we know that consists of the experiencing, the creature, and the creation, the experiencing entity, which begins with the subtle body and then unfolds into the physical body to create the experiencing entity. And but that is only the beginning. I mean, we create this entity in connection with the creation of Jagata, which is the experienced universe. So they are basically, they come together in one single package. I cannot create just the entity, you know, because the entity depends on what? It depends on Jagata, because Jagata is going to somehow provide the development of the subtle body, the sense organs and the mind and so on. They developed from the properties of the elements, as we know. So everything comes into play, projecting power, and the concealing power. Okay, I guess this verse, it's not going to cover the concealing power of Maya, but just stays at the projecting power. And it's such a short verse, and Swami Paramarthananda goes forever unfolding, and a lot of angles looking at this one. So we covered quite some ground, and it's all about the creation as it appears here. The projective power creates, and does it really create? That is the point. So as we know, nothing really is created. Everything exists, and not even God, as we heard last time, not even God has the power to create the universe. So God can do what? Can just project names to forms, brings about names to properties of different forms. Nāma-rūpa, nāma-rūpa. It is, and then it was given again and again the metaphor or the example of the potter, which just sees the clay, a lump of clay, and then from there it facilitates the different shapes, and given names to those shapes and so on. But everything was there within the clay as potential. Everything is there, and then the question is to understand what is the fundamental, the substance of the creation, which is Māyā, it is the clay, or it is Brahman, So, and then we went into Brahman, but plus manifest nāma-rūpa becomes Ishvara, and then Brahman, plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa, unmanifest nāma-rūpa, it remains as māyā. We have māyā, it has the potential, and then the moment that this potential projects nāma-rūpa, and then we have Ishvara. And we have seen several nuances of these expositions. The potter does not do anything to the fundamental substance, clay, but only brings the unmanifest nāma-rūpa into manifestation. Nothing is produced, including nāma-rūpa. So not even the name and the form is produced. No, the clay is there, and not even the name and form was produced by the potter, for a great surprise, until we understand Vedanta. Substance, the essence plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa is called the real cause. So we have the fundamental substance, and this substance, as we know, is the essential nature of the universe, sat-citānanda. And this substance and plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa. When we say unmanifest nāma-rūpa, is substance Brahman plus māyā, which did not manifest but has the potential. So, and that is the cause of the universe. So the cause of the universe is being presented as Brahman, but plus māyā, okay? And before it brings about Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. The same substance, Brahman, sat-citānanda, plus the manifest nāma-rūpa is called the effect. As we know, this principle called Brahman plus manifest nāma-rūpa is called an effect, and this effect is Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat. What is the benefit of the efforts of the potter? This is the inquiry. What is the benefit of the potter going there and bringing about all this substance? All this product. He has neither created the clay, nor he creates nāma-rūpa. So the clay was there, and then we believe that he has brought about the nāma-rūpa, but not even the nāma-rūpa, because was already there as potential. He has just changed the unmanifest nāma-rūpa into manifest nāma-rūpa, okay? Unmanifest to manifest nāma-rūpa. So knowledge is there, but it is unmanifest, and then it manifests. But the substance was there, māyā, unmanifest, and then to become manifest. So it has only changed that status of unmanifest to manifest nāma-rūpa. This nāma-rūpa transformation is called creation. Creation is the manifestation of nāma-rūpa upon the fundamental substance. Creation is the manifestation of nāma-rūpa upon the substance. So creation is not the creation of nāma-rūpa. So nāma-rūpa was not created. It is beginningless. And then creation, it appears to be the beginning of a phenomenon, but it is not. As we know, creation itself is also beginningless, okay? But when the universe manifests, brings about manifestation of nāma-rūpa, and then we call it creation. Which substance remains the same before and after the manifestation? This is the lesson number 2. So there is a substance that remains the same before and after this manifestation of nāma-rūpa. So what is creation? Is transformation of unmanifest nāma-rūpa into manifest nāma-rūpa. And we have seen that Brahman alone does not bring about anything, but then when māyā comes into place, it is Brahman plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa, and then when Ishvara comes into place, is Brahman plus māyā plus Ishvara, bring about the manifest nāma-rūpa. So, but the manifestation was not really created. It was just like projected, as we know. This is the lesson number 2. So we saw the lesson number 1, which was probably that before we saw that most probably that was the potter. The potter does not really create anything. The potter does not create anything because the substance was there before the potter came, which is argila. But then we think that, okay, but the potter does create when he shapes the argila, which was provided by Ishvara, when he shapes that into nāma-rūpa. And then we thought did create something. But then here we say lesson number 2 is no, it's not really creation. It is a transformation of unmanifest nāma-rūpa to manifest nāma-rūpa. So what about the creation of the universe? The universe must also be the basic substance with the manifest nāma-rūpa. If the universe is created substance, a product or an effect, it must also be a substance with manifest nāma-rūpa. If the universe is created substance, a product or effect, it must also be a substance with manifest nāma-rūpa. Before the production of the universe, the basic substance must have existed within unmanifest. Same concept. The universe in the current condition is one basic substance with infinite nāma-rūpa. The basic substance cannot be created by anyone, including God. We saw that nothing can be created. Gaudapada established this principle in the Mandukya Karika. The basic substance must have been present with unmanifest nāma-rūpa. What is the basic substance? It's technically called Mula Vastu. What is the truth of this universe? The truth is that Brahman is this fundamental principle. Just as clay is the basic substance from the standpoint of the earthenware, from the standpoint of the whole of creation, including the 5 elements, the basic substance is Brahman, sat-citānanda. In fact, the nāma-rūpa is given to refer to whatever the functions of rūpa is. So name is given to whatsoever properties or functions, okay, given to each one of these objects. Name is given to refer to whatsoever property or functions of all forms. Every form is a configuration, and then we give a name, and the name is something to point to describe its functional property. What is the universe? It's Brahman plus manifest nāma-rūpa. Okay, and then it says Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa is the cause, and Brahman plus manifest nāma-rūpa is an effect. So Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa is the cause, and then manifest nāma-rūpa comes into play, and then we have the world, we have Ishvara, Jiva, Jaga. The technical name for the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, which is located upon Brahman, is māyā. Okay, so we covered that already. The technical name for the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, which is something located within Brahman or upon Brahman, is māyā. Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa. Māyā is the cause, and Brahman plus the manifest nāma-rūpa. Māyā is the effect. When it manifests, and then we call it Ishvara. And unmanifest, we call it māyā. To differentiate Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, the cause, and Brahman plus the manifest nāma-rūpa, the effect, two distinct names are given. Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa is called Ishvara. Brahman plus māyā is Ishvara. So Brahman plus māyā is Ishvara. Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, māyā, is called Ishvara. Brahman plus māyā is Ishvara. Brahman plus the manifest nāma-rūpa is called Jagata. Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa is Ishvara. Okay. So here it's making a slight distinction. Brahman plus the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, we call it māyā, no? But here it's also present as Ishvara. No? We have Ishvara as what? Ishvara as pure knowledge, intelligence. But Brahman plus māyā is Ishvara. Brahman plus the manifest nāma-rūpa is called Jagata. So when Jagata come, and then we say that Ishvara is fully manifest. It's no longer just there unmanifest as the intelligent cause, but it's manifest as the Jagata and Jiva. Brahman continues to be present all the time without having any transformation at any time. So this is the bottom line, the most important point. Brahman is always there. The substance Brahman continues to be the same. Nāma-rūpa, the nāma-rūpa that's upon the Brahman goes through the unmanifest and manifest conditions. Conversion of unmanifest nāma-rūpa into manifest nāma-rūpa is what we call creation. Conversion of manifest nāma-rūpa into unmanifest nāma-rūpa is called dissolution or pralaya, the way backward. This goes on and on. Krishna described this process in the Bhagavad Gita by saying, at the beginning of the day, all things that are manifest arise from the unmanifest. At the beginning of the night, they resolve in that alone, which is called the unmanifest. So, anything from you guys?
I have a question. It seems if Brahman plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa is māyā, and māyā is a power of Brahman, an integral power of Brahman, then māyā is always present. So when we differentiate Brahman from māyā, how do we do that?
Well, I mean, when we look at this sort of equations, you know, Brahma plus this plus that, and so on, it's just mathematical equations. They are not really, it's not really exact science, you understand? So what is Brahman? Brahman, as we know, is the essential nature, the substance of everything. Okay? And then we say that everything, the universe exists within Brahman, but it remains unmanifest. Remains unmanifest during pralaya, let's say. And then when you say that it becomes unmanifest as Maya, and then we already adding that there is a creation which is intrinsic to Brahman, but it does exist within Maya, which is unmanifest nāma-rūpa. Okay, it begins with Maya. You know? So now we have Brahman, and then we have the power, the potential for creation, which remains unmanifest as Maya. So this takes us to all kinds of subtle discussions about what is Maya, for example. You understand? Maya is a power. Maya is the fundamental prakriti, meaning to say this basic energy, which is a combination of the three gunas. And so all of this is Maya. So, and then Brahman plus Maya, we have the unmanifest nāma-rūpa. But then it manifests first as Ishvara. But as Ishvara is still, the universe is not fully manifest, because Ishvara has to extend itself to become Jiva Jagata. And then we have all the nāma-rūpas. When Ishvara is no longer the efficient cause, but it extends itself as the manifest nāma-rūpa. So tell me.
So I'm sorry, can you say that that Ishvara is Brahman, but Brahman is not Ishvara?
Well, we have Brahman, which is sat-citānanda, which is conscious existence. And then you're asking if Ishvara is Brahman, but Brahma is not Ishvara. Yes, this is often said, presented in that way, because what is the fundamental nature of Ishvara? You understand? And a lot of the time we see that the teachings resolve Ishvara 2 into Ishvara 1 in many instances, in the Viveka Shuddhamani, for example. So Ishvara fundamentally is Brahman, but it is kind of manifest or in the process of manifest. Why? Because Brahman itself, it is the only reality. And then Maya comes into place, and then we have the potential for 1, Ishvara, 2, Jiva, 3, Jagata. So all of that exists within Maya. So your question is Ishvara. So what is Ishvara? Ishvara is Brahman. That within the context of this teaching is Brahman plus unmanifest nāma-rūpa. And then when Ishvara becomes Jagata, and then a Brahman plus manifest nāma-rūpa. So Ishvara appears to be the key, because Maya, it is a certain power that it brings about Ishvara, and but Maya on its own does not really does not really produce all these nāma-rūpas. This is the play of Ishvara, the creator, the sustainer. But as we have seen, not even Ishvara can create the manifest nāma-rūpa, because the manifest nāma-rūpa exists already as potential, as the seed nāma-rūpa of the entire universe. That's why it says here, the Gita, at the beginning of the day, all things that are manifest arise from the unmanifest. So did Ishvara manifest it? No. Who has manifested that? So we would have to say, so maybe Maya, but ultimately, the only convincing conclusion is that nobody has done anything, because ultimately this is just a mirage. It's just a projection, you know. And in the end of the day, the night, everything resolves back into the unmanifest. I don't know if I have covered your consideration, but please feel free to say more about that.
Yeah, I think I understand, and there's a little bit of difficulty in cognitively switching from the dual to the non-dual. And so I think it just takes time, and I'll keep working at it.
Yeah, from a practical point of view, what we need to understand is that that Maya itself is a power, no? Which is the fundamental energies, which are going to allow the universe to shine, to reflect, to appear. And it is said that Maya, being this fundamental reflecting medium, it is composed, it is configured by the three energies, and the sattva aspect of this Maya is what brings about Ishvara. So what is Ishvara? And this goes to many of these discussions about what controls what. Does Maya control Ishvara? Ishvara controls Maya. You understand? So Maya brings about this phenomenon in which pure sattva brings about pure knowledge, and then Rajoguna brings about all energies to project, and then Tamaguna brings about the concealing and the physical aspect that gratifies energy into matter, into creation, into disappearing. So we have these three basic aspects of Prakriti, which is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, that brings about Ishvara, and then Jiva, as we understand, and Jagata. So what is the thing there about Ishvara? So Ishvara seems to be a byproduct of Maya, but being all-knowing, being the pure knowledge of the universe, even unmanifest as nāma-rūpa, it is the big deal. Ishvara is the big deal. You understand? Because it's going to play with the other energies and sustain the universe, and reshape the universe on a moment-to-moment basis, and so on. So Ishvara is the big deal, and that's why we have great reference to Ishvara much more than we do have for Maya. Maya, we tend to blame Maya, to say, so why you do this? You create all these messes, all these projections and so on. For what sake? What's the end game here? So it's not absolutely relevant, these subtle discussions, as far as self-knowledge. I find that this basic understanding of Ishvara being Sattva Pradhana Prakriti, okay? It is a dominance of Sattva Guna in the macrocosmic reflecting medium brings about Ishvara, and then the same thing with Raja Guna. Wherever there is more of dominance of Raja brings about the Jiva, the entities, experience entities, and the tamasic aspect is going to bring Ishvara with all its nāma-rūpas, manifest as the Jagata. So
Thanks.
There is only Brahman. In one condition, it's called Ishvara. In another condition, is called Jagata. Here we go. So there is only Brahman. In one condition is called Ishvara. And this condition refers to the condition of unmanifest nāma-rūpa, because it is manifest as pure knowledge, but it's not manifest as name and form. Okay, nāma-rūpa. So it remains unmanifest. It's called Ishvara. And then when it manifests, it is another condition called Jagata, but it's all Brahman. And then it is going to appear as Ishvara and Jagata. The author says that this Māyā, which is nothing but unmanifest nāma-rūpa, and located in Brahman, is also known as Brahma-śakti. Now talking about Brahma-śakti, which is another way to look into Māyā, which is unmanifest nāma-rūpa. This Māyā is known by the name Shakti. Any Shakti or power cannot exist independently. It has to exist within some substance. For example, the speaking power cannot exist separately from the person that has the power to speak. So how can we separate the power to speak from the person itself? You understand? So both that they are there, they cannot be, separate. The same way Māyā-śakti rests in Brahman and cannot separate from Brahman. This Shakti depends on Brahman for its existence. So it's the case with everything. Everything depends on Brahman. So therefore, this Māyā-śakti has two powers, as we know. One is Vikshepa, the power to manifest, the power that converts the unmanifest to the manifest condition of the universe. Vikshepa means throwing out or projecting. The manifestation of the universe is in the hands of Vikshepa-śakti, of Māyā. So the manifestation of the universe is in the hands of this Vikshepa-śakti of Māyā, which rests on Brahman. The second power is āvaraṇa, the power of covering or veiling the truth. First, the Vikshepa-śakti of Ishvara starts functioning at the time of creation. So this is a nice passage here. It's a good concept. First, the Vikshepa-śakti. So let's go back. The first power we understood, Vikshepa, we own that to Māyā, and it's a power that somehow rests on Brahman, although Brahman is one without anything. But then it says that there is a second power, and those powers we call Māyā power, Māyā-śakti or whatever, and they don't really, they rest in Brahman, but not really in Brahman. And then we saw here the analogy of the person who has a power to speak, and his ability to speak cannot be separated from itself. Now, the talent is another way to look into this power, in which way this power of projecting could be seen, relate to Brahman. So the Vikshepa starts function at the time of creation, the Vikshepa-śakti of Ishvara. We have the Vikshepa-śakti of Māyā, which rests in Brahman. And then a second power is āvaraṇa-śakti, the power of covering and veiling the truth. But before we go in āvaraṇa, first, the Vikshepa-śakti of Ishvara starts functioning at the time of creation. Ishvara is not affected by āvaraṇa-śakti of Māyā. when the Vikshipa-shakti is operating, all the unmanifest nāma-rūpa gets manifest. All the universe and all the individual jivas are projected. Once the jivas and jagata come into manifestation, the āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā becomes active. And because of that, every jiva suffers ignorance of the basic truths. What truth? That everything is Brahman plus nāma-rūpa. And that jiva is also Brahman plus nāma-rūpa. This is called ajnana, and āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā is called ajnana. This self-ignorance leads to the fear of mortality, which is samsara. Self-knowledge is the solution for this samsara. The following verse will deal elaborated on this subject from the verse 13 to the 21st. So things get nicely subtle. But let's see if we can do something about what is being said here. So we have this. We have the power. We have the manifestation. The māyā-śakti. It has the power to project and to conceal. So the project is Vikshipa, and it throws out, projects things out there. The manifestation of the universe, it's all in the hands of this power of māyā, Vikshipa-shakti. The second power is āvaraṇa, the power of veiling the truths. First, Vikshipa-shakti of Ishvara start function at the time of creation. And Ishvara is not affected by āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā. So we have the three energies there. We have Ishvara, we have māyā projecting, which is Vikshipa Shakti. It starts projecting the universe, but it does begin by projecting Ishvara. And then the first thing is Ishvara. Vikshipa Shakti of Ishvara start function at the time of creation. So when this power comes into play and brings about Ishvara, one would imagine that, okay, in order for this projection to take place so that we have Ishvara, and then as we know, Tamoguna must be involved as well, because Tamo and Rajas, they are all the time intrinsically together in the manifestation, even of this initial stage of projecting Ishvara. So when Ishvara comes into play, we have these energies already playing, Vikshipa and āvaraṇa. So, but this Vikshipa power, Shakti, does not veil Ishvara. Okay, Ishvara is not affected by this āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā. When the Vikshipa-shakti is operating, Vikshipa, all the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, it gets manifest. So when Vikshipa-shakti is operating, and then we have Jagata, all universe, all unmanifest nāma-rūpa gets manifest. All the universe and the individual jivas are projected. And so once the jivas and jagat come into manifestation, only then the āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā becomes active. Okay, and because of that, every jiva suffers from avidya. So the point here is that Ishvara is not affected by āvaraṇa-śakti, and Ishvara is not really responsible for ignorance, as often we hear. Okay, why God projects this ignorance and all this suffering, and then we hear the scriptures say, no, Ishvara is not responsible for suffering or ignorance, because Ishvara is pure knowledge, pure intelligence. Okay, and it's not concealed by āvaraṇa. Okay, āvaraṇa does not play its concealing power on Ishvara, because Ishvara is a huge dominance of sattva guna. We call it pure sattva. Okay, although there is some tamaguna there, but does not have the power to cause any ignorance in the mind of the creator. Okay, so but when the creation unfolds to produce jiva and jagata, and then we have a situation there, and the situation of ignorance does not even apply to jagata. It does apply to jivas and jivas only. The āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā becomes active, and because of that, all jiva is going to suffer of ignorance. This is the phenomenon called aññāna, and the āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā is called aññāna. This self-ignorance leads to the fear of mortality and blah, 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 blah. As you can see, this is heavy-duty stuff. I mean, I'm getting my mind tired by now. So how about, Mark, you telling us a little joke?
I don't know any jokes, Arlindo, but yeah, it's heavy-duty stuff. It's good to hear, though, and try to... the mind isn't quite capable of absorbing all this knowledge. And yet I can kind of understand it, but to actually take it on board is difficult. But I'm glad just now the commentary said there is only Brahman in one condition called Ishvara and in another condition called Jagat. So I'm glad it goes back to non-duality from time to time and takes us back to the fundamental truth. Because we could get lost in all this if we're not careful. So it's good to remember those basic truths there, the absolute truth.
And I mean, I like this passage, this concept that Ishvara is not affected by ignorance, and it's easy for us to understand that Ishvara being the pure sattva guna, shining in the Maya's fundamental prakriti. We have this entity, which is the reflection of consciousness on pure sattva. So how pure jiva's mind can be to reflect sattva guna? You understand? So one can have a very, very sattvic mind, but yet there will always be enough rajas and tamas there to create vikshepa and āvaraṇa, the projection and concealing or ignorance or inability to really understand what's going on and see things clearly and so on. So we know that jivas, we have this consciousness, okay? And it manifests as knowledge, as chit, but it is big time subjective to avidya, and we know for direct experience. But how about Ishvara, this incredible entity that somehow is still, is a byproduct of Brahman in association with the three energies, but somehow it shines with what we call as pure as possible self-knowledge and knowledge of the universe, okay, from its potential unmanifest and then to become manifest once it fully unfolds and Ishvara becomes Jagata. So how about this Ishvara? Ishvara is something very different from the Jiva, and we can tell that Ishvara is not subject to avidya. You understand? Otherwise, Ishvara would never be able to sustain the universe by its intelligent laws. and structuring it and maintaining it and recycling and accounting all the paravadas, all the punya papas. So such a intelligent power cannot really be under the spell of a vidya by no means, you understand? And we understand why it's said to be all-knowing, omnipresent, and so on, you know. It's the knowledge, it's the pure knowledge by which this universe is projected, sustained, and recycled. So I think that's the point here, in which way jivas suffer of avidya, but not Ishwara. You understand? There's the creator, sustainer, and the destroyer as well, that does what it does by pure knowledge. Okay, although it's not really creating the universe as we have just seen, but it's again and again converting the unmanifest nāma-rūpas into manifest nāma-rūpas, and then sustaining everything, and then at the end of the day bringing everything back to the unmanifest nāma-rūpa, which is the māyā, Brahman māyā, let's say. To explain the origin of this avidya, ignorance, the author enters the creation top, even though it's not the main subject matter of this text. Brahman is the cause of the universe, and the universe is the effect. So here it says that this ignorance that we just addressed here, which applies to Jiva, but not to Ishwara, which is due to āvaraṇa-śakti of māyā, is not something that we find in the Drsya. Okay, so the author enters the creation top, even though it's not the main subject matter of this text. This text is pretty much around Jiva and self-knowledge. Jiva, the way Jiva experiences Jagata, and in which way it can understand its true nature as the absolute seer. So it's all about that. It does not brings about Ishwara. It does not brings about avidya and many other topics. But here, Swami Paramarthananda says that the author does open a small exception, and concluding that Brahman is the cause of the universe, and the universe, it is the effect, the emergency of the effect from the cause is creation. Brahman is the nature of sat-citānanda, as we know. Thereafter, we saw that any product is nothing but nāma-rūpa, so we have seen all of that. So the unmanifest nāma-rūpa is called māyā. This māyā has two powers. Okay, karmas, jiva, determine the creation. During the solution, all the sanchita karmas are dormant. Okay, here we go even into some sanchitas. Ishwara is not affected by āvaraṇa-śakti. We have understood that. The karmas of the jivas determine the time of creation. During its solution, all the sanchita karmas are dormant. Okay, so I'm tired. This is a heavy-duty kind of thing. I have been reading a lot and having to try to make some sense of all of this. And how about we play one or two Vedantic text questions before we call the day for today. If we have any.
I just think this is a problem, that how can the knower be known? We try to get some cognition about this whole situation, but cognition itself is under the influence of vikshepa and āvaraṇa. So I don't say it's a sticky wicket.
Well, so that is the most intriguing piece of āvaraṇa in the mind of the seeker of moksha. How can the knower be known? So what is the difficult about that? I mean, you'd say that if there is a difficult, it's due to this concealing power, because we have all these teachings and all these examples and analogies and so on, and it's so simple, it's so extremely simple, and why we can't see exactly the way the scriptures reveal to us, that you are that consciousness always ever present, and making known what you know and known what you do not know, and so on. So you cannot know anything without your conscious existence, and so on. So how can the knower be known? And if I understood your inquiry, it's what is the difficulty to realize the true nature of the knower? What is the true? What is the power that is concealing this simple fundamental truth, which is my ever-present conscious existence, right? So what is the deal there? So we could say that it is āvaraṇa. āvaraṇa needs to be taken into account because it somehow conceals the truth from the seeker of moksha, no matter how self-evident it may be. But this āvaraṇa, it plays itself always in association with vikshepa. It reminds me of Swami Shimayananda explaining these two energies, and says the misapprehension of reality as it is, the misapprehension of reality as it is the non-apprehension of reality as it is, the non-apprehension of reality as it is produce a misapprehension of reality. Okay, so we have these two powers. First, we don't see the most obvious, and then side by side, what do? We misapprehend. First, we do not understand, we can't see, we cannot apprehend, and then we misapprehend. So this misapprehension is the vikshepa aspect that, to my take, is the last obstacle for the seeker of moksha. Why? Because there is something there that but I'm not quite convinced. I'm not quite convinced. And then it keeps projecting the self, projecting the seer, the knower, into a possible object of knowledge or experience. You understand? So we know those two energies, they live together, okay? But a contemplative mind is a mind that is there contemplating on this simple truth, but indeed very subtle, okay? Until we understand the scriptures and we we refuse to refuse this projection as if I can find the knower in the known, the seer in the seen. So because unconsciously or subconsciously, there is this piece of Vikshipa still trying to find the self in something that we experience or know objectively, you understand? So I would say both energies are at play there, Vikshipa and āvaraṇa. And as Swami Shimaya used to say, the non-apprehension produces the misapprehension. The misapprehension is the projection. Oh, no, it must be this, must be that, must be this phenomenal, wonderful, mystical, or whatever, you understand? So the clear apprehension is the apprehension of the simplicity of Vedanta, which is this subject, knower, conscious principle, in which everything is known, everything is revealed, never not present, and not an object of knowledge or experience. Something like that. Why it should be difficult, I don't understand. But we understand a little bit, because it's an old vasana, this vasana of finding value on experience.
It's really the primordial vasana.
Yeah. Vasana for experiencing the self is the ultimate vasana for the seekers of moksha. No?
Thank you.
Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, Mr. Māyā. Thank you, the scripture. And we meet again soon, Ishvara willing, with Panchadas. Panchadas is going to be much easier compared to these things here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Roland.
Okay, thanks, Alinda. Bye now.